back at if you can meet your 17-year-old self and give a 17-year-old Mellissa one piece of advice, knowing what you know now, what would it be?
And Mellissa, feel free to say I would never be on this podcast, you know.
I would advise her that in a few years' time, you're going to get invited onto the stream. Decline immediately.
For me, it's surveying those utilities and finding really what are your driving issues, what are you worried about, where are you looking for, and then feeding that information back to the people that are developing new products.
Hello and welcome to The Stream Season 5, an unscripted, unedited, free-flowing conversation featuring guests who reject the status quo with a bias for action in the world of water and beyond. My name is Tom Freyberg. I'm an environmental journalist and content creator specializing in water.
And I'm Will Sarni, a water strategy advisor and investor, doing my part to solve wicked water problems.
We'd like to thank our sponsor for this season, Acciona from Spain, as well as our knowledge partners. And don't forget to like and subscribe the channel if you're watching, because it really helps in the long run. So today we are really thrilled to be joined by Mellissa Meeker, who is the Chief Executive Officer of the Water Tower from the US. Mellissa, thanks for joining us, and how are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me. Really excited to be here.
Amazing, amazing. So we've got lots we want to talk to you about in terms of the innovation space, in terms of the kind of workforce challenges. But I just want to say, first of all, congratulations on the opening of the Water Tower, because I think I was watching your progress and your Twitter images of kind of the construction, and it was amazing to kind of see it come together. And you opened this year earlier, right? In the springtime.
Yeah, that's right. April, we had our first major event. It was an incredible 4-year journey for sure.
Amazing. So we want to kind of get in, I think, to the actual, I guess, the purpose of the Water Tower as that kind of that ecosystem that you're building. But we're always really interested here, I think, in, well, we call it the origin story, and actually what led you to this point in April. And obviously there's a lot of blood, sweat and tears in opening that and the kind of the next chapter of your life. But maybe you could just run us through kind of the journey and where that idea and concept came from as well.
Yeah. Well, the idea actually generated out of the county that we're located in. Gwinett County has always been on the forefront in terms of innovation. They've always, gone beyond what regulatory requirements were and built a really cool facility, which we happen to be adjacent to, the Ep.3 Water Resources Center. So they had this reputation, but they're not one of those utilities that you hear about a lot because they don't really brag a lot. But I had direct interaction with them because of their indirect potable reuse plan that the county practices. They actually pull their water out of Lake Lanier, treat it higher and better quality than the lake is, and send it back to the lake. It serves, that's the headwaters. It goes all the way down the Gulf of Mexico. So a very important lake right here that we're adjacent to. So they had this idea to create a water innovation center. As you can imagine, with a facility like they always had people knocking on their doors to come in and do some R&D or try some new product or something like that. And they were like, look, we're trying to run this facility, but we like the idea. So let us build this innovation center. And the previous director, who's since retired, stalked me in DC, like stalked me and said, you got to come down. You're the right person for this. And I'm like, I like my job. But he finally convinced me to come down, and I took his little brainchild and spun it into what it's become today, which is really exciting. So it definitely was a journey.
Mellissa, do you see other utilities and municipalities doing the same thing now nationally? And it's a bit of a loaded question because that's going on with Denver Water and CSU now, but It just struck me that this is a thing. This is a trend that's gaining traction.
It's definitely a thing. And I can tell you that we've had people contacting us in the last couple of months. Hey, come tell us your secret. Tell us how you did it. I'm not telling. It's a lot of hard work. But no, I mean, I think I'd rather franchise the Water Tower around the country and let them use our model. And so it's pretty awesome. But yeah, we are seeing, I mean, I think utilities know they have really big issues to solve, and they're not going to do that without their local partners, which includes, academia and private businesses and everything else.
So could you franchise it?
Why not?
Okay, so is that something that was launched on the stream in terms of helping you get traction?
Hey, I'm
Tom is
in.
smiling. So Mellissa, I always sign up for everything on these podcasts, and Tom's like, "Oh my God, what did he do?" But
No, we normally, but
I
to
love
be
the
fair,
idea.
we want to make sure that this, we have purpose and we have something that comes out of each episode, right? And normally Will agrees to write 20 white papers, sign MOUs. No, I'm kidding. But I can almost see the cogs turning, Will, when you think about franchising this and helping play a part in that across the US and also over the Atlantic back in the UK. Because when you're talking, Mellissa, about Gwinett and having that kind of research facility and also that innovation facility, I think about the other models that I see, and you have the innovation lab from United Utilities, where you kind of have 100 or so startups apply, and it gets whittled down to a handful, and then they get to partner, apply their solution to the utility network, and almost kind of get incubated. And then you get the Innovation Shop Window program with Anglian Water. Again, it's quite well known internationally. So how do you sort of see this being unique? You mentioned, you've got this secret recipe as part of the franchising. So what makes the water tower kind of unique in that respect?
I think we have taken a different approach. And I mean, we have very good examples in the US too. The Water Council, for example. But I think we've taken a little unique approach, certainly not competing with those other organizations by any means. We're all trying to move the industry forward. Our approach has been, yes, we have this innovation piece, but innovation is about pushing the industry, but it's that workforce component that really makes our center unique, in that we're trying to address the critical workforce issue that the entire world has, but our region in particular. So how can we sort of marry those two? Very conservative industry. You guys know this better than I do. Getting them to take on new innovative, even processes, let alone technologies, is very difficult. But if I can incorporate those technologies into the workforce training, then you sort of get a soft sell. You get that new workforce exposed to the possibilities, so that then when they go back to their utility, they can say, oh, I just spent 3 days working on this new SCADA system or this new analytics thing. We should really be doing that here. So it might be a way to open the doors. So I think the private industry is excited about it because it is that soft sell. They don't have enough salespeople to hit every utility. And even when they hit the utilities, half the people they talk to aren't the right people.
Right.
So we're getting, by bringing the workforce angle in, we're getting the people that are actually using those tools on a day-to-day basis here to upskill them. And if we can throw in some innovation in there, we're going to do it.
Mellissa, to that point, first of all, I think it's brilliant you're focused on the workforce, because there's so much focus on technology and how cool it is, and digital is the rage, and of course it'll sell itself, but no one's talked to a customer, or someone that has to use it. Is there an opportunity, and maybe you're doing this already, to basically take what you're doing in terms of workforce focus and engage with technology transfer offices in academic institutions to ensure that they're not just ginning up ideas that may or may not have any market value, but actually directing them in addition to you engaging with like TNC Techstars or, the whomever that is, sort of a traditional water tech hub and accelerator program. So sort of flipping this around a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've tried to get at that, and I would love to, pick your brain to get advice on how better to do it. But I think we've started with some surveys. So my connection from my previous position, which was the WERF CEO, Water Environment Reuse Foundation CEO, and before that, Water Reuse Research Foundation, is that connection with utilities really around the world, where companies don't really have that. Other startups that are really laser focused on economic development don't necessarily have a utility impact or network outside of their specific area. So for me, it's surveying those utilities and finding really what are your driving
Mhm.
issues, what are you worried about, where are you looking for, and then feeding that information back to the people that are developing new products. I get companies that come in the door all the time. Oh, we have this great solution. I'm like, well, what utility data have you used to test that out? Well, we haven't. We used energy data. Okay, well, let's start with getting you real data to work with so that your product is actually worth something.
So let's schedule that call. And
Okay.
Tom, this is the second action item in under 5 minutes. But no, I love the idea because making technology relevant for the customer, is so critically important. And I think just so much time and money is wasted on things that are interesting from a technology perspective, but they're not relevant. The user is really not going to adopt it.
You just made my mind go down a different track. One of my pet peeves is if I have another startup or small business that walks in and says, we have a services and software, I'm going to scream. Utilities can't have.
You don't get excited when someone says software as a service to you anymore?
No, yes, I don't, because how many of those can a utility afford? How many can they have? And every single one is different. They just can't. It's not sustainable. And I don't know how the industry is going to deal with that. That was my little.
No. We value either rants or mini rants, and I would put this in a sort of a light touch rant. No, it's good. I think this is part of the challenge in terms of technology adoption and a disconnect between the investor world, the startup world, the tech hubs, accelerators, and I hate to say reality, but reality. Whether you're selling into the utility sector or the private sector. If you haven't talked to a customer to inform your innovative either business model or technology, then you're going to burn a lot of money, and people are going to lose money in the scheme of things. So yeah, I completely agree with you.
I think it's brilliant how you mentioned surveying the utilities to then inform the solution providers on exactly what problems are out there. I think that's kind of flipping the whole equation. So how far does the reach at the moment of the water tower go? Because I'm thinking potentially of international companies, and we saw that you had a really good partnership with an organization in Spain as well, the Go Hub, to kind of try and link those two. So how do you see that kind of working? Because I think that's a really interesting shift to try and kind of switch the companies and partners over, if you like.
Yeah, I think, again, it goes back to my previous positions in the network. Really excited about some conversations we're having with utilities in Australia. And Adam Lovell's a very good friend, so that's a nice connection. Yeah. When I was in Copenhagen, I talked to the folks over there about sharing sort of that living laboratory. They call theirs a living laboratory. That's exactly what I say we have here. So I think you will see those relationships expand and see how we can partner on things. Our first industry event, which we had in April, our kickoff, I had utilities from California, Nevada, Texas, Florida, up in the Northeast. We've got an event coming up in February. I've got utilities from all over. Went to the north side of the country for that event, but really excited about just, again, using that network to bring people into this, to make this sort of the place where water meets and has those discussions about where the future needs to go.
Yeah, Adam's a great guy. I enjoyed a couple of beers with him in Sydney.
I have no doubt.
Yeah, we were chatting all sorts: water innovation, culture, the UK utility salaries through to football. That was a really, really good conversation. But I think part of what this reminds me of is I was recently in the north part of the Netherlands, in Friesland, where they have the water campus. And you have the kind of research side from WETSUS that links through to the Water Alliance, which is essentially like the accelerator and the incubator. So you can take the research through to the accelerator and then connect them with kind of Dutch utilities or industry. And it's a concept that works quite well. And in previous interviews, a lot of the sort of Dutch friends and colleagues have kind of called this the golden triangle, where you kind of have these three crucial elements, where you have kind of the government side, you have the research academic side, and you have the private sector and finance side. And if you can get those three parts in unison, collectively pushing together to solve water, it's a pretty powerful combination, right? And I think that's essentially another part of what you're doing there at the water tower, is you're bringing together these parts of the recipe that are needed to really help scale and for innovation to be adopted.
Yeah, and we certainly have, you know, when you say private side and talk about investing, talking about startups and things like that, I have spent a lot of time focusing on actually established companies. You know, we have great partners, Siemens, for example, Camstrup, you know, large companies that are looking for a place and a way to shape and get involved in thought leadership issues as well as the workforce training. They're struggling just as much as utilities are. So by bringing that group together with those other parties, I think, again, that's what creates the dynamic ecosystem.
Very cool. So something we've talked about in the past as well, and I'm starting to look into this a bit more, is this phrase, the silver tsunami. That's it's a little bit.
Wait a minute, Tom. Wait.
No, Will, I'm getting there too, brother. I mean, come on, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, it's Will, you have your hand up on the camera there.
Well, I don't know why. I have no idea how that happened. I did want to make a point, which I guess I did by interrupting.
No, but I think it's because we often talk about these mega challenges facing water companies, right? You know, population growth, the impacts of climate change, dwindling water resources, micropollutants, PFAS, but actually, you know, there's some really quite startling facts around the number of water operators that are due to retire within the next 5 years, and actually that huge workforce gap, that if you're not recruiting fast enough and training people up, you're going to have this knowledge gap. A lot of people are saying, you know, digital is one of the answers to help with that knowledge transfer, if you're digital twinning infrastructure and knowledge. But actually, I think, how do you see that playing out in the kind of the role of the water tower in making sure when the silver tsunami arrives, you know, we're pretty resilient as an infrastructure? And it's not to cause offense with the description of silver. I know, Will, we've had an entire podcast on this, and we've tended to go for the phrase seasoned, right?
Seasoned.
As opposed
I love
to
seasoned.
senior.
I love
can't
seasoned,
say
yes.
old, just seasoned water professionals. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And I mean, we can wait for it to arrive, but it's happening, right?
Right.
So an incredible rate of retirement. And we're talking about people with 35, 40 years experience that are retiring. Right. And, you know, you're right. A lot of knowledge walks out the door when that happens. I think a big focus for us is, you know, two key things. First is, how do you make water sexy? How do you attract that new workforce? And there is a digital component to that. I mean, these are gamers. These are, you know, they grew up. I think they were born with a cell phone. You know, so we've got to get the industry up to speed on technology to some degree in order to attract them in the door. So that's the first piece. So how do you attract them, and how do we talk about our industry in a way that makes us attractive? Because we're not even thought about. I can't tell you how many high schoolers or first-year college students I talk to that say, oh, well, if I'd have known that these careers were around in water, I probably would have gone this way, but I had no idea. So it's not being talked about. That's the first challenge. The second is, once you get somebody in the door and you're lucky enough to get them and you start, they're working, they're not going to, this generation, a couple generations actually, aren't going to stay there unless there's something exciting to stay there for. And I really feel like upskilling them in creative ways is how we're going to do that. So you'll see those two themes a lot in what the water tower does in terms of programming.
I agree with your point completely about digital as being, you know, a way to make the sector sexy and retain talent. And there's a whole body of research on that in terms of, you know, digital enterprises attract talent, they retain talent more, you know, regardless of the, you know, the age group. So that's a really powerful tool. And then, you know, really an interesting point about the sector, you know, reaching out into the academic world at a very, you know, high school, you know, university, and getting out there and recruiting and educating and just increasing awareness. Is that something that you're doing with the water tower now in terms of, let's say the local community or Georgia in general?
Yeah, we have right now 4 high school trainees. They're in a work study program in their senior year. So we, approached them before they became seniors, told them all about the program, took them on a tour of the plant, brought them to the facility, got them excited about it. And they spend half a day, 5 days a week with us. And
Wow.
over that time, the requirement in Georgia is 3 months of hands-on experience. So over that 8-month period, with that time commitment, we teach them how to run the plant. We get their hands-on experience. We get them ready to take the exam. So when they graduate and they turn 18, they can sit for the exam, and then they're ready for placement as an operator. So they don't even have to come in as a trainee. They're ready to go. And that program
Wow.
it's exciting, and the kids are excited. It's a little different talking to seniors in high school than maybe a 25-year-old or a 26-year-old, but it seems to be working. So the model that we're testing out, and we actually have an ARPA grant to do this, is to work in the senior level, senior high school level, to bring them in as trainees to get them going, but to use our local social service nonprofits as the grassroots initiative. I can't go out into the neighborhoods, and the churches have a good handle on kids that need some help and are really good. The local we have a local Latino focused organization called Corners Outreach, and they brought us 4 students, and after
Wow.
2 weeks of 2 times talking to us, we had 4 students out. So these are the organizations that know their communities best and can inspire them to try something new, and we hope to be that new thing.
That's a great initiative and model when you franchise this.
Yeah, because every organization has small grassroots nonprofits
Right.
that help them. So why not tap into them and give them, leverage they need to get people in jobs? That's really what we're trying to do, is create resilient communities, right?
Yeah, I love it.
I was having a really interesting conversation on this workforce issue in another recent sort of webinar recording. And one of the speakers, a really great guy called Chris Sarnowski from WaterClip, was saying one piece of advice to a lot of experienced water operators about to retire is if you're at the sunset of your career, if you can mentor sort of 2 or 3 young water professionals, as a way of kind of giving back, of a way as how incredibly rewarding is that? To not that to help. Obviously, you've got the 35 years you mentioned, Mellissa, of knowledge transfer to make sure that's passed on. But just from a career point of view, if we can encourage mentorship across utilities, I think that is incredibly powerful to then encourage the young professionals to stay within that same organization, to see that how this can provide really rewarding careers with purpose as well.
It's a great point, Tom. I don't know. I mean, I've met a lot of these individuals. I don't know that they would grab a hold of that, but I have met plenty with 10 years experience that would. So we'll find the mentors in there, but that's a great idea.
Maybe there's a challenge there. I mean, we're talking about changing mindset, right? And it's actually this okay, do I want to spend my last few days where I'm almost 1 foot out the door trying to train up someone who's a bit wet behind the ears? But actually, if we can change that mindset that it is incredibly rewarding, there's something there, I think. So, Will, we need to add that. Is it number 3 or number 4?
That is number 3, and that's squarely in your court. I do love it. Mellissa, so you just won the number of action items after 4+ seasons. So congrats.
Wow.
We haven't finished yet.
Do I have to do them?
No. That's the beauty of it.
Oh, okay.
We're just addicted to this. So we sign up, and we'll have a follow-up call, and
great.
We'll get it going.
Okay. I look forward to it. Let's add a couple more. Come on.
Go for it.
So, I mean, do you think, because you both said it about, making water sexy, make it an attractive industry, there's something to be said. I remember doing this video interview in Shanghai, actually, with the mayor of Rotterdam, a guy called Mayor Ahmed Abitaleb, who's still in place. And now Rotterdam's an amazing city because it's kind of known as being this resilient Rotterdam and almost leading climate adaptation. And he said the same thing, this was a few years ago, and said, you know, we need to change the way we talk and communicate about water. And I headlined this video interview, Make Water Sexy, you know, Mayor Abitali says. And a bit of a funny story, it kind of blew up the website traffic on this former publishing company. And so much that it was crashing the website. It was getting 500,000 page views and views of this video. And my boss was convinced it wasn't because people were searching for water, it's because they were searching for something else.
Yeah, right.
And that word came up in the story. And so we ended up having to change things around. So maybe it was kind of be careful what you wish for in the end. But I do think this, you both kind of mentioned digital and that side. And, you know, there's been an explosion of software companies on the market. But I think this whole new segment of jobs in terms of programming, in terms of gamification, in terms of that side of the industry that's still really developing is such a huge opportunity to bring in people who would have previously been interested in, say, you know, electric vehicles or renewable energy or kind of game programming. So this is now a core part of the industry to go forward and actually, like when we think about the potential of gamification to create community agency around water, like there's a whole new segment of jobs and AI and programs around that. I think is, from a reporting point of view, is really interesting, but also it's a huge opportunity as well.
It's a great point. You know, we have a game that we play when we go into high schools and we're talking to kids to say, you think you know what you want to do for a career, you toss it out and we'll connect it to water. Because it really is, it takes everything in order to accomplish what we are. So that's a great point.
I like that. So what's the game that you play? It's
like,
sorry, okay, it's not. It's
you throw it out and we'll connect it to water. So,
right, okay. So pretty much anything.
Yeah, everything, exactly. Yeah. There's a legal side.
Like
I mean, everything. It's and yeah.
Very cool, very cool. So, Melissa, something that we, as long as I remember, because we didn't on the last episode, but on the first one we did, we try to kind of end every episode is something where we say, if you could look back at if you could meet your 17-year-old self and give a 17-year-old Melissa one piece of advice, knowing what you know now, what would it be?
And Melissa, feel free to say I would never be on this podcast, you know.
I would advise her that in a few years' time, you're going to get invited onto the screen. Decline immediately. Yeah.
We'll cut that out, of course. But you know, I just want to give you encouragement.
No, I mean, I'll be honest, guys. I love everything I've done.
Wow.
I mean, even the things that I failed at, I think created something in me that made this whole thing happen. And it's funny because you asked what the journey was for the water tower. I mean, to me, it was 30 years of professional experience and personal experience that happened along that way. It was hitting a door and, you know, having to turn around and find another open door. It was pulling the best parts of all of those jobs into what I felt was needed for the industry. And even my team is hand selected. I'm just blessed to be where I am right now and just excited. So no changes. Everything is positive.
Hey, Melissa, would you say that, first, I love the answer, in part because you didn't say you would never do this again, but it sounds like through your, you know, career, you've been open, you know, to, wow, I never thought of that, but I'll be open to it. I will explore it. And that sort of inherent curiosity is really valuable. I mean, it just as an outsider listening to you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I often tell the story. People say, how did you get started on your journey, really, to go from, like, you know, a part-time employee with no benefits to actually your first real career? And I was working for a regulatory agency, and the local elected official was trying to get something done, and everyone around me at the regulatory agency was saying, no, 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 no. And I finally just sat down with him and said, all right, I don't know how to make this happen, but let's figure out what we can do. And he became my mentor from that point, and he still mentors me to this day. So it is that openness. There's no such thing as no. Let's figure out how to do it. And like I said, even when something bad happens, you can turn it into a positive and grow from it. So it's all good.
I love it.
I think staying curious is key, right? Because we have this this like quite innocent curiosity as a kid that tends to get dampened over the years. But actually, if you can keep open-minded and curious well into adulthood, and even you mentioned you're pretty happy at your previous job before the opportunity of the water tower came along, but you were open-minded and you thought, actually, there's something here I think my skills can lend it to. So clearly you were you remained curious as to what this could become.
Absolutely. So when are you guys going to come see it? Come on.
When as soon as you invite us, we're going to come, right? Well,
you know, I have a podcast room too.
You do?
Oh,
I do.
Oh,
I do.
Oh, well, that was compelling. Well, Tom, you're going to have to come across the pond, you know?
Yeah.
So
I can see a whole mini series here. You know, the stream on the road, partner with the water tower. I mean, there's action item. We're on 4 or 5 now. So I mean, this is I'm happy to organize this one, Will.
Great. You know, the trip across America with Will and Tom, you know?
That would be great. And you can even pick out my franchise location.
Oh, I love how you think.
Scouting, and
I love it.
Do you need anything in the kind of the Keys in Florida? I mean, because
sure, why not?
Yeah, be careful what you wish for, Mellissa, because you know it'll be tourist destinations. You know,
that's okay. They need water.
But I think
everyone did.
That's right.
I mean, we've all, you know, we've talked about tech innovation a lot, and I think this part that you're playing, Mellissa, in the workforce and actually upskilling people to actually bring on some perspectives of almost before and after, and the kind of the actual views of the operator and how they view innovation and new solutions. I think there's some really interesting potential sort of storytelling and viewpoints in that. So yeah. Okay.
You just mentioned storytelling, and when you were talking about how we make things sexy, that to me is, you know, there is definitely a focus these days on that storytelling piece. And we just have to figure out how to do it better, because water has a beautiful story. So
I know a guy that does that, Mellissa.
Yeah.
As a day job. So
is that
maybe we can reach out to him.
6?
I believe it is, and we'll see if we can network into him and have a chat. But yeah, that's definitely 6.
Awesome.
I love it. Okay, let's make it happen. Yeah, trip to the water tower. Well, I think it's a common theme whenever we speak to our guests. Like, we had a call with Mark Barnett from Jamaica. I think on the to-do list was a research mission over there as well, right? So we'll have a busy 23, which is good.
Sounds great.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, Mellissa, thanks so much for joining us. We knew it was going to be a really interesting kind of your origin story, and also the role that the water tower is having in that kind of workforce development and innovation. And keep doing what you're doing. It's amazing and great to see it. As I mentioned, seeing the journey of the development of the site, and it's a beautiful bit of architecture as well. So thanks for joining us, and thanks, Will, as well.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Hey, Mellissa, great. Good conversation.
Good. I'm glad. Appreciate it, guys.
Hey, I'm going to raise my hand again.
Uh-oh.
No, I'm only kidding.
Good stuff. All right, guys. Thank you. See you soon.
Thank you. Have a great day.